First contact under fire. The UES Vigilant cut through the darkness of deep space, its sleek hull designed for the long-range patrol missions that had become routine since humanity joined the galactic community. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, her weathered features reflected against the backdrop of stars. 15 years of deep space service had taught her that the universe rarely offered simple answers, but nothing had prepared her for what awaited at the edge of human space. Contact, bearing 340 Mark II. Lieutenant Rodriguez called from the sensor station. Energy signature doesn't match any known configurations. Chen turned from the window, her dark eyes narrowing. Classification: unknown, Commander. But it's big. Really big. Rodriguez's fingers danced across his holographic interface. Multiple signatures now. They're attacking something. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a scene that made Chen's blood run cold. A massive vessel of unknown design was systematically destroying what appeared to be civilian ships. The attacking vessel's surface rippled with an organic fluidity that defied conventional engineering principles. Life signs on the civilian vessels. Chen demanded. Confirmed. Reading approximately 3,000 refugees. Their ships are different. Crystalline structure, unlike anything in our database. Chen didn't hesitate. Battle stations. Lieutenant Park, get me a channel to Fleet Command. Rodriguez, tactical analysis. I want options. The Vigilance crew moved with practiced efficiency as alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship. They were a patrol vessel, not a warship, but Chen hadn't survived this long by playing it safe. Fleet Command responding. Park announced. Text only. Continue observation. Do not engage. Relief fleet estimated arrival 48 hours. Chen watched as another civilian ship exploded into crystalline fragments. How many will die in 48 hours? She muttered. Then, louder. Lieutenant Park, open a channel to the civilian vessels. The response came in the form of harmonics that the ship's translators took several seconds to decode. This is Elder Kyrix of the Luminon Exodus Fleet. Please, we cannot withstand another attack. Our children. Elder Kyrix, this is Commander Chen of the UES Vigilant. We're moving to assist. Can you tell us anything about your attackers? The Harvesters. Kyrix's translated voice trembled. They consume civilizations. Take our technology, our knowledge. We thought we had more time to evacuate. Chen studied the tactical display. The Vigilant was outgunned, but they had advantages. Human ships were notoriously difficult to predict, their hybrid technology combining elements that most species considered incompatible. All hands, Chen announced shipwide. What you're about to witness is officially a violation of orders. Anyone who objects can log their protest now. Silence answered her. Very well. Tactical target analysis of the hostile vessel. Engineering, I need everything you can give the engines. Medical, prepare for casualties. The Vigilance engines flared to life as Chen orchestrated her plan. They weren't the biggest or the most advanced ship, but humans had centuries of experience turning disadvantages into victories. Commander, Rodriguez interrupted. I'm detecting some kind of energy buildup from the hostile. They're adapting. Their whole structure is changing. Good. Chen smiled grimly. That means they notice us. Tactical. Execute pattern Delta 3. Let's show them why picking on refugees was a mistake. The Vigilant accelerated, its unconventional design allowing for maneuvers that would tear apart more conventional ships. Chen had always pushed the boundaries of what her vessel could do, and now those countless hours of testing experimental protocols were about to pay off. Their weapons are charging, Rodriguez reported. Energy signature it's like nothing I've ever seen. Neither are we, Lieutenant. Neither are we. Chen's fingers flew across her command interface. All hands, brace for unconventional maneuvers. Let's show these harvesters why humanity's first contact protocol includes combat scenarios. The battle that followed would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. The Vigilant, despite being drastically outgunned, executed maneuvers that larger ships couldn't match. Chen used the patrol vessel's superior agility to stay in the Harvester's blind spots, striking with precisely calculated hits that probed for weaknesses. "Their hull," Rodriguez exclaimed, "it's trying to adapt to our weapons, but it can't predict our attack patterns." Chen nodded. Human combat doctrine was notoriously difficult for AI-driven systems to predict, precisely because it often defied conventional logic. "Keep pushing. Coordinate with engineering for maximum power to weapons when we make our runs." The Harvester vessel, for all its advanced technology, found itself unable to effectively target the smaller human ship. Every time its adaptive systems thought they had a solution, the Vigilant would switch tactics, using its hybrid technology in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Hours passed in a deadly dance through space. The Vigilant took hits, but Chen's unconventional tactics kept them in the fight. More importantly, they kept the Harvester focused on them instead of the refugee fleet. "Commander," Park called out, "the Luminon ships report they're almost beyond the Harvester's weapon range. But our port shields are failing, and engineering reports the main reactor can't take much more stress." Chen watched as the massive Harvester vessel turned toward them, its hull now a patchwork of attempted adaptations to their attacks. "They've learned a lot about us in this fight," she mused. "But they haven't learned the most important lesson about humanity yet." "What's that, Commander?" Rodriguez asked, his hand steady on the tactical controls despite their situation. "We're our most dangerous when we're cornered." Chen opened a shipwide channel. "All hands, prepare for maximum performance. Engineering, route everything we have to the forward temporal displacement drive." Warning indicators flashed across every console on the bridge. The temporal displacement drive was an experimental system, only theoretically tested. Using it at full power could tear the ship apart. But as Chen watched the Harvester vessel bearing down on them, she knew they were out of options. Sometimes, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. Sometimes, it was simply their willingness to try the impossible. "All hands," she announced, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Remember this moment. We're about to show the galaxy why you should never underestimate human ingenuity." The Vigilant's engines glowed with an intensity that made nearby sensors overload. In the next few moments, Commander Sarah Chen and her crew would either make history or become part of it. Either way, they would demonstrate why humanity had survived countless wars and challenges, not because they were the strongest, but because they never, ever gave up. The human factor. The temporal displacement drive's activation bathed the Vigilant's bridge in an otherworldly glow. Time itself seemed to stretch and compress around the ship as Commander Chen's gamble played out. The Harvester vessel, for all its adaptive capabilities, found itself targeting a ship that existed in multiple temporal states simultaneously. "Drive stability at 60%, Lieutenant Park reported, his voice strained. "The containment field is holding, but barely." Chen watched as the Harvester's weapons passed harmlessly through where the Vigilant had been microseconds before, or would be microseconds later. The temporal uncertainty made traditional targeting impossible. "Maintain course. Rodriguez, status of the refugee fleet. Last vessels clearing the danger zone now, Commander." "But," Rodriguez hesitated, "the Harvester is adapting again. Their weapons are showing temporal variance." That was the problem with fighting an enemy that could evolve its technology mid-battle. Every advantage was temporary, but Chen had planned for this. "Engineering, prepare for Protocol Omega. Bridge crew, secure stations for gravitational distortion." The Vigilant's experimental drive systems weren't just about moving through space and time. They represented humanity's approach to physics itself, not as immutable laws, but as guidelines to be bent. When conventional warfare failed, humans had learned to change the rules of engagement entirely. "Harvester vessel showing signs of structural stress," Rodriguez reported. "Their adaptations, they're happening too quickly. Their hull integrity is compromising under the temporal fluctuations." Chen nodded grimly. "They're trying to match our temporal state, but they don't understand why we designed our systems the way we did. All those redundancies and seeming inefficiencies. They're not bugs. They're features. Human ships were notoriously over-engineered, with systems that alien observers often dismissed as unnecessarily complex. But those same systems allowed human vessels to survive maneuvers that would tear other ships apart. Commander Park's voice carried an edge of urgency. Engineering reports critical feedback in the temporal drive. We can't maintain this state much longer. We don't need to. Chen's fingers danced across her command interface. All hands, brace for gravitational shear. Tactical, target their primary mass concentrations. Fire on my mark. The Vigilance weapons had been modified during the battle, each shot now carrying a payload designed to exploit the Harvester's own adaptations. As the temporal drive reached its limit, Chen gave the order. The shots struck true, each impact creating a cascading failure in the Harvester's evolved systems. Their attempt to match the Vigilance temporal state had left them vulnerable to conventional attacks in ways their original configuration would have easily withstood. Multiple detonations along their hull, Rodriguez reported, excitement creeping into his professional tone. Their adaptive systems they're turning against themselves. The massive Harvester vessel began to break apart, its organic technology unable to cope with the contradictions forced upon it. Chen watched dispassionately as the ship that had threatened thousands of innocent lives tore itself apart. Temporal drive offline, Park announced. We're back in normal spacetime. Engineering reports. Extensive damage throughout all systems. But we're holding together. Chen finally allowed herself a small smile. Send word to the refugee fleet. Let them know the threat has been neutralized. She paused, considering their next move. And get me a channel to Fleet Command. I believe I have some explaining to do. Hours later, as repair crews worked to stabilize the Vigilance-damaged systems, Shen sat in her ready room composing her report. The door chimed, and Lieutenant Rodriguez entered with a data pad. Analysis of the Harvester debris, Commander. You're going to want to see this. Chen studied the findings, her expression growing serious. They weren't alone. No, ma'am. Evidence suggests this was a scout vessel, a test of our defenses. Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. They'll be back, with more ships, better prepared. Good. Chen's response surprised him. Let them come. Now they know what humanity is capable of, but they don't know everything. She stood, moving to her viewport to watch the repair drones at work. Every time they adapt, we'll innovate. Every time they evolve, we'll revolutionize. That's the real human factor. We don't just survive, we learn. We grow. We change the game entirely. The lieutenant nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Like the temporal drive, we didn't just build it to move through space-time. We built it to prove it could be done. Chen finished. Every piece of technology on this ship exists because someone somewhere decided to try something everyone else thought was impossible. She turned back to her desk, pulling up the ship's specifications. And now, thanks to this encounter, we know exactly what we need to improve. As the Vigilant limped home, escorting the refugee fleet to safety, word of the battle spread quickly through subspace communication. Breaking point. News of the Vigilant's victory spread rapidly through human space, but Commander Chen found little comfort in the accolades. The repair crews at Orbital Station 7 worked around the clock to restore her ship, but time was running out. Long-range sensors had detected multiple Harvester signatures approaching from deep space. Fleet Command estimates 2 weeks before they reach the outer colonies, Admiral Santos reported during the emergency briefing. His holographic form flickered above Chen's desk. The Vigilance encounter proved they can be beaten. But one ship got lucky. Chen finished. They'll be ready for our temporal tactics next time. Precisely. We need something new, something they can't predict. The Admiral's expression hardened. Your ship's repairs are being expedited. Whatever you did out there, we need you to do it again, on a larger scale. Chen studied the tactical projections. The approaching harvester fleet was massive. 15 capital ships, each likely carrying improvements based on data from their fallen scout. But the projections revealed something else, something in their formation that tickled her tactical instincts. "They're learning," she murmured, "but they're learning the wrong lessons." The next 10 days passed in a blur of activity. The vigilance systems were not just repaired but enhanced. Chen drove her crew through endless drills, testing theories that made even veteran engineers nervous. They weren't just preparing for battle, they were rewriting the rules of engagement. "The temporal drive modifications are complete," Lieutenant Park reported, now sporting a healing gash above his left eye from a failed test. "But the power requirements will push our systems beyond their limits," Chen nodded. "That's exactly what we're counting on." The human defense fleet assembled at the edge of the Arcturus system, 30 ships of varying classes, with the Vigilant taking point position. Chen had spent days convincing Fleet Command to approve her strategy. It wasn't just risky. It defied conventional military doctrine. "All ships reporting ready, Commander," Rodriguez announced from his tactical station. "Harvester fleet will enter weapons range in 3 minutes." Chen opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Commander Chen. You've all studied the Vigilance encounter, seen how the harvesters adapt and evolve. Today, they expect us to rely on technological superiority. They expect us to fight according to logical patterns." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "We're going to disappoint them." A harvester fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their ships had indeed evolved, their hulls now a complex matrix of temporal shielding and adaptive armor. They were ready for anything the humans could throw at them. Almost anything. "All ships, execute Formation 0, Chen ordered. "Temporal drives to standby. Engineering, prepare for total systems failure." The human fleet moved into position, creating a pattern that made no tactical sense. Ships exposed their vulnerabilities, positioned themselves at seemingly random angles. To the harvester's analytical systems, it appeared to be chaos. That was exactly what Chen wanted. The first harvester shots passed harmlessly through projected positions, their targeting systems confused by the apparently random movements of the human ships. But Chen wasn't relying on evasion. She was counting on something far more fundamental. "Now," she commanded, "all ships, execute Protocol Omega Red." 30 temporal drives activated simultaneously, not to displace their ships through time, but to create a massive temporal distortion field. The space between the fleets became a maelstrom of temporal energy, with past, present, and future bleeding into each other. Warning alarms blared across the Vigilance bridge as systems began to fail. "Hull integrity at 40%, Park shouted over the noise. "Temporal feedback is exceeding all safety parameters." "Hold position," Chen ordered, her knuckles white on her command chair. "Wait for it." The harvester ships, their adaptive technology programmed to respond to any threat, began to evolve. Their hulls shifted and transformed, attempting to match the temporal distortion. But they didn't understand what Chen had realized during her first encounter. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon was entropy itself. "Their shields are failing," Rodriguez reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "The temporal feedback, it's creating cascade failures throughout their fleet." Chen watched as the massive harvester ships began to break apart, their own adaptive capabilities becoming their undoing. By trying to match the impossible temporal state of the human fleet, they had violated fundamental laws of physics. The result was catastrophic. "All ships, emergency jump to safe coordinates," Chen ordered as the destruction of the harvester fleet created a temporal shockwave. Protocol Omega Red complete. The human fleet retreated, leaving behind a graveyard of broken harvester vessels. They had won, but the victory had come at a steep cost. Every ship in the fleet had suffered severe damage. The Vigilance temporal drive was a fused mass of exotic particles and broken dreams. But they had proved something important. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their willingness to embrace chaos, to push beyond the boundaries of what should be possible. As repair crews once again swarmed over the damaged fleet, Chen received a priority message from Fleet Command. More harvester signatures had been detected in deep space. Larger this time. More numerous. She smiled grimly. They would keep coming, keep adapting, keep evolving. But so would humanity, because that's what humans did best. They survived, they adapted, and they never, ever fought the same battle twice. The real war was just beginning, and Commander Sarah Chen was already planning her next impossible victory. The turning tide. The aftermath of the Arcturus battle brought both celebration and concern. While humanity had won a significant victory, the cost was staggering. The entire defense fleet lay crippled, their temporal drives destroyed. But Commander Chen saw opportunity in the wreckage. "Show me the analysis again," she ordered, studying the holographic display in the Vigilant's newly rebuilt tactical room. The Luminon refugees they had saved weeks ago had offered their crystalline technology as thanks, and Chen had an idea. "The harvester debris shows signs of quantum entanglement," Lieutenant Rodriguez explained. "They don't just adapt. They share information across their entire fleet instantly. Which is why they'll be even harder to defeat next time," Park added. "They're learning from every encounter." Chen touched the hologram, manipulating the display to show the crystalline modifications being made to the Vigilant's hull. "Then we'll give them too much to learn." The Luminon engineers had been skeptical at first. Their crystalline technology was based on harmony and resonance, the opposite of the chaos theory warfare the humans preferred. But Chen saw potential in that very contradiction. "If we can't outfight them," she explained to her crew, "we'll overwhelm their ability to adapt." The next harvester fleet arrived sooner than expected. 50 ships, their hulls already configured to counter every tactic humanity had previously employed. They emerged from hyperspace to find a single ship waiting, the Vigilant, its hull now a hybrid of human engineering and luminant crystals. "They're scanning us," Rodriguez reported. "Their adaptive systems are confused. They can't get a clear reading." Chen smiled. "That's because we're giving them everything to read. All frequencies, all possibilities, all at once." She opened a channel to the enemy fleet. "Harvester vessels, this is Commander Chen. Last chance to retreat." The response came as a barrage of weapons fire, each shot designed to counter a different potential defense. But the Vigilant's new hull didn't try to defend. It reflected, refracted, and redirected the energy in ways that defied prediction. "Crystalline matrix holding," Park announced. "Resonance patterns are stable. Ready for Phase 2. Chen nodded. "Execute." The Vigilant's hybrid systems activated, creating a cascade of quantum possibilities. The crystalline hull amplified and reflected them, turning the ship into a reality warping prism. To the Harvester's adaptive sensors, the Vigilant appeared to exist in every possible state simultaneously. "Their ships," Rodriguez stared at his readings. "They're trying to adapt to everything at once. Their systems can't process the contradictions." The Harvester fleet's attempts to evolve into every possible countermeasure created a feedback loop. Ships began to tear themselves apart as their adaptive technology fought itself, unable to settle on a single configuration. "Signal detected from the lead vessel," Park reported. "They're requesting communication." Chen leaned forward. "Now they want to talk. Put them through." The alien consciousness that addressed her was both fascinated and terrified. "Your species defies comprehension. We cannot adapt to that which has no pattern." "That's humanity's greatest strength," Chen replied. "We don't need patterns. We make our own rules." The surviving harvester ships retreated, leaving their destroyed companions as testament to humanity's ingenuity. But Chen knew this wasn't the end. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's role in it would never be the same. As the Vigilant returned to port, its crystalline hull humming with possibilities, Chen received word that other species were requesting human assistance with their own defense technologies. The Luminon were already proposing a joint research initiative. Humanity had proven itself not just as warriors, but as innovators who could bridge the gap between different technological philosophies. They had shown that sometimes the best defense wasn't the strongest shield or the most powerful weapon. It was the ability to think beyond the possible. The war wasn't over. The harvesters would return, with new adaptations and strategies. But they would find a humanity that had also evolved, not through biological imperatives or technological assimilation, but through cooperation, innovation, and the stubborn refusal to accept limitations. That was the true power of humanity, not what they could build or destroy, but what they could imagine and achieve when they dared to dream beyond the boundaries of the possible. Sacrifice and innovation. The harvester threat had evolved beyond physical combat. Their next wave brought something new. A quantum virus designed to corrupt the very fabric of human-alien hybrid technology. The Vigilant's crystalline systems detected the attack first, their resonant frequencies distorting under the assault. Multiple ships reporting system failures, Rodriguez called out. The virus is spreading through the quantum network. It's learning from our defenses. Chen watched as Allied ships began losing power, their hybrid systems turning against them. The luminant crystals, so essential to their previous victory, were becoming a liability. But she had anticipated this. "Execute Protocol Phoenix," she ordered. "Disconnect all quantum systems and revert to baseline human tech." "But Commander," Park protested, "without the hybrid systems, we'll lose our advantage." "Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war," Chen replied. "All ships, initiate emergency purge." The human fleet systematically shut down their advanced systems, reverting to technology that would have been considered primitive by galactic standards. The harvesters, expecting resistance, found their virus hitting empty space. "They're moving in," Rodriguez reported. "Traditional weapons only, but their hulls. They're still adapting." Chen smiled grimly. "Good, because we're about to show them why humans survived centuries of warfare before we ever reached the stars." All ships switched to ballistic weapons. No targeting computers, manual control only. The battle that followed would be remembered as the Great Regression. Human ships, stripped of their advanced technology, engaged the harvesters with tactics that predated spaceflight. Kinetic weapons, unguided missiles, and improvised explosives struck with devastating effect against an enemy that had evolved to counter quantum weapons and temporal strikes. Their adaptive systems, Rodriguez observed with growing excitement. They can't process such simple attacks. There's nothing to analyze, nothing to evolve against. The Harvester fleet, for all its technological superiority, found itself unable to counter the sheer unpredictability of human naval warfare. Their ships, designed to adapt to the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, had no defense against precisely aimed railgun slugs and tactical nuclear devices. But victory came at a terrible cost. The human fleet, operating without shields or advanced systems, suffered massive damage. The Vigilant's hull was breached in multiple sections, its crew fighting in spacesuits as atmosphere vented into space. "Engineering reports critical damage," Park announced through his suit's comm. "We can't take much more of this." Chen, blood floating in zero gravity from a cut on her forehead, watched as another harvester ship succumbed to old-fashioned human ingenuity. "We don't need to. Look at their formation. They're breaking." The enemy fleet, unable to comprehend or counter such primitive warfare, began to retreat. Their adaptive technology, rendered useless against attacks that required no adaptation, had become a hindrance rather than an advantage. As the last harvester ship disappeared into hyperspace, Chen surveyed the cost of their victory. The human fleet was in ruins, their advanced technology purged, their ships barely holding together. But they had proven something invaluable. Humanity's strength lay not in their tools, but in their minds. The cleanup operation took weeks. The Luminon and other alien allies helped rebuild, but with a new understanding of human warfare. They had witnessed a species willingly sacrifice their technological advantages to achieve victory. a concept that challenged galactic military doctrine. "The harvesters will return," Chen told her crew as they began repairs. "They'll try to adapt to our primitive tactics, but that's exactly what we wanted." Because while the enemy focused on countering 20th century warfare, humanity was already developing something new, something that would combine the best of both worlds, the unpredictability of human combat with the sophistication of alien technology. The next time the harvesters came, they would face an enemy that could fight at any level, with any technology, using any tactics. Because that was humanity's true evolution. Not the ability to use advanced technology, but the ability to win without it. Legacy. 6 months after the Battle of Broken Ships, as historians now called it, Commander Chen stood before the Galactic Council. The vigilant, restored but forever changed, orbited above, a symbol of humanity's unconventional approach to warfare. "The harvesters have not returned," she addressed the assembled representatives. "But they will. And when they do, we'll be ready, not because we have better weapons, but because we understand something they never will." The council chamber, its crystalline architecture reflecting the light of distant stars, held representatives from 100 species. Among them sat the Luminon, their crystalline forms pulsing with interest. "Adaptation isn't about becoming stronger," Chen continued. "It's about becoming unpredictable. Humanity doesn't evolve through biological imperatives or technological assimilation. We evolve through ideas." She activated a holographic display, showing the new hybrid ships being constructed in orbital yards across human space. They weren't simply combinations of human and alien technology. They were entirely new designs built around the principle of controlled chaos. "The harvesters' greatest weakness wasn't their technology," Chen explained. "It was their inability to understand that sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most advanced one. They expected us to fight like them, to evolve, to adapt, to become more complex. Instead, we chose to be simple when they expected complexity, primitive when they expected sophistication." The new defense doctrine she proposed wasn't just about military strategy. It was about changing how the galaxy thought about warfare itself. Ships were being designed with multiple redundant systems, some advanced, some primitive, allowing them to fight at any technological level required. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy," Chen concluded. "Not our weapons or our tactics, but our perspective. The understanding that true strength lies not in having the best tools, but in knowing when not to use them." The Galactic Council's adoption of human military doctrine marked a turning point in interstellar relations. Earth, once considered a backwater world of primitive humans, became a center of military innovation and strategic thinking. The harvesters did return, years later, with ships that could counter both advanced technology and primitive weapons. But they found themselves facing fleets that fought in ways that defied prediction, combining technologies in ways that shouldn't work, executing strategies that violated conventional military logic, and succeeding precisely because they were willing to fail in spectacular new ways. Commander Chen never saw the final battle. By then, she had become Admiral Chen, architect of the new combined fleet doctrine. But her legacy lived on in every ship that carried both quantum computers and backup mechanical calculators, in every crew trained to fight with both energy weapons and kinetic slugs. The Vigilant was eventually retired, transformed into a museum ship where future generations could learn the lesson that saved humanity. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from being the strongest or the most advanced, but from being willing to try what everyone else thinks is impossible. In the end, humanity's true gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their courage. It was their stubborn refusal to accept limitations, their willingness to embrace chaos, and their understanding that the best way to face an adaptive enemy was to become something that could never be fully understood or predicted. The age of the harvesters had ended, and a new era had begun, one where the galaxy learned that true evolution wasn't about becoming more powerful, but about becoming more imaginative. And somewhere in deep space, new threats were emerging, ready to test humanity's unconventional wisdom. But that was exactly what humans did best: face the impossible and find a way to make it possible.